Welcome to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, the podcast where we dive deep into the journey from vision to reality. I'm Kelly Jackson, your guide on this path of self-discovery, transformation, and intentional living. Here, we explore everything from mindset shifts and personal growth to spiritual alignment and entrepreneurship, sharing insights, stories, and actionable wisdom to help you live a life in harmony with your dreams. Every episode will dig into what it means to not only dream big, but to actually consciously create the life you envision. Let's turn your dreams into real life. Hello. I want to open today with intention. I want to invite everyone into a shared space of reflection. Whether you are a mother, you have a mother, you long to be one, or you are mothering something else entirely, like a business, a vision, a healing journey. I'm going to share some parts of my story that I have never fully shared before, and I hope it inspires you to honor where you are and who you are becoming. Mother's Day can be a beautiful, complicated, tender, joyful, painful, and everything in between type of time. And today I want to open my heart and share parts of my journey through loss, birth, gratitude, and the deep transformation that motherhood brought me, not just as a parent, but as a woman, as a healer, as a coach, and a creator. My hope is that this episode will remind you that no matter what your relationship with motherhood looks like, there is something sacred in the way we are all called to mother ourselves, others, and the dreams we carry. So let's start off with talking about the many ways that we mother, because I'm going to broaden the definition of mothering to be inclusive. Emotional labor, caretaking, nurturing businesses, ideas, communities, and nurturing our inner children. So on that note, motherhood isn't just biological, it is energetic. You can be mothering without ever having birthed a child. It's in the way that you care and tend and hold space, guide, create safety, and pour love into people or projects. Mothering is an energetic presence that offers protection and nourishment. And it's the ability to see the unseen and to feel the unspoken. And some people mother through teaching or coaching or community work or even the way that they show up for their friends. And we mother in boardrooms and bedrooms and our own healing. You know, whether we are comforting a crying child or holding a vision in a leadership meeting, we're often weaving this invisible thread of emotional safety and structure. And it's in our personal healing journeys that we mother the parts of ourselves that were left unheard or unloved. And we become the nurturers that we always needed. And sometimes that sacred act of mothering starts with a whispered affirmation, maybe in the mirror. That's how I like to do it. Or choosing rest instead of overextending. And it's in these micro moments where we give ourselves grace. There are women mothering while grieving, while rebuilding, while healing themselves. And they're doing the impossible. They're nurturing others while carrying their own pain. And they smile through heartbreak and cook dinner while their soul is aching and tuck others in while lying awake with anxiety. And we don't see their struggle on social media, but it's real. They're mothering not from overflow, but from deep reserves of resilience. And they deserve to be celebrated, not just on Mother's Day, but every day. You can be a cycle breaker and still be exhausted, and both are sacred. Being the one in your lineage to say, this ends with me, is brave work. It is not for the faint of heart. But it is also deeply tiring because you're not just parenting your children, you are reparenting your own inner child and rewriting generational patterns. And sometimes the path of healing doesn't feel noble. It feels messy and lonely. And you're allowed to rest. And being tired doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. I think Banksy said, when you're tired, learn to rest, not to quit. We're allowed to redefine what mothering looks and feels like. It doesn't have to be martyrdom or self-sacrifice to count. Mothering can be boundaried and bold and intuitive and creative. And it can look like saying no to something so that you can say yes to your well-being. You don't have to mimic someone else's version of nurturing. You get to decide what feels true and sustainable for you. If you didn't already know or tune in, one of the very first episodes, maybe episode 3, is on motherhood. So check that out. It's on Motherhood, episode 3. Let's make space for the mothers, for the motherless, for the longing hearts, for the creators. This Mother's Day holiday can bring joy, but it can also stir grief and longing and pain. And there are people mothering others without being recognized. There are those who have lost their moms or who never had one who could truly nurture them. And there are people in the in-between, and the ones trying to conceive, the ones healing from loss, the ones hoping, praying, quietly grieving. And all of these experiences matter. And all of these hearts belong in this conversation. I want to invite you to notice where you are already nurturing life around or within you. And even if no one is celebrating you for it, you can honor yourself. And I hope that you do. I want to share a little bit about my story with loss and birth and becoming. So when I my whole life, I dreamed of being a mom. And it was like 1 year of trying to conceive. And I was at the point of my life then where it was like really trying to conceive, like a lot of anxiety around it, a lot of pressure around it. I wanted it so bad. And this went on it got to like 11 months. And I was thinking that I would need to look into fertility options. They said, well, if you get to the 1 year mark, then we will. And right at 11 months, I did get pregnant. And I was ecstatic, so excited. And I was also so heartbroken when I miscarried that pregnancy. And I felt I just didn't see it coming. It wasn't even something that it wasn't even a scenario that I had like imagined in my mind. And I had already imagined an entire life for this baby. And so I remember there was a place that I had been frequenting at the time. It was a place I was getting some services at, and I was going to this place weekly and had been going prior to becoming pregnant. I had been going. I continued to going once I did become pregnant. And I remember the time I went to this place for the first time after miscarrying the baby. And I told someone that was working the front desk that I would see all the time that I had lost the baby, that I'd had a miscarriage. And their response was, well, they asked what happened. I said, well, they said it was like chromosome abnormalities and that the pregnancy aborted itself. And their response was, oh, so it was like you were never really pregnant in the first place. And I remember, and again, I had not done any of the inner work yet, and I couldn't get out of that establishment fast enough and to get into my car to have a total breakdown. I remember feeling so hurt that someone would tell me that it was like I was never really pregnant first place. Now, I had spent a trimester being pregnant, and I had fallen in love with the baby long before, right? I had spent a year praying for this baby, and it was so unexpected. And I learned that people don't really know what to say, and I don't believe that the majority of people have ill intentions or mean to say anything. And the thing is the way that I interpreted it at the time was through the lens of my experiences at the time and the tool set I had at the time and my theme of consciousness at the time and all of these things, right? And so it's this combination of so many things. And so, but it stands out to me. And I remember at the time feeling so hurt by that and so shocked by that. And it wasn't the first thing, the first or last or only, comment that was made that I remember feeling upset by when I was grieving the loss of that pregnancy. Now, I realized too that trying to conceive is a journey in surrender. And I didn't realize that the first go round. But what happened was after losing the baby, after just completely I didn't really know what to do. I just curled up in a little ball for for weeks and just cried and felt sad. And then I was finally like, okay, I've got to go do something, and decided to get a part-time job at the hospital for reasons directly related to losing the baby. And when I got this job, and again, I've shared this story before, but I instantly connected with the woman who hired me. We ended up starting a business together instantly, like within the first month of meeting. We were just meant to meet. And when we started building this business, and instead of being sad and just thinking about it, and I was focused now on building the business. And when I shifted my focus to building the business, surprise, I got pregnant. And that's why I understand now, or even then, that, the journey to conceive is a journey in surrender. And also, the miscarriage taught me about grief in a way that nothing else could. And some of that I wouldn't even fully realize till later, right? The way that impacted me and affected me and shaped me and all of these things. I wouldn't fully understand it at the time it happened, right? But so then came my rainbow baby. Then came the rainbow baby, our rainbow baby. And this was not just a child. This was hope in human form. And this was just an answered prayer. And it was, I was nauseous with her. I was sick with her pretty much the whole time. It didn't matter. I was so happy. I loved being pregnant. I loved it. I loved it. I loved everything about it. It didn't even matter that I was sick. I just loved the experience of being pregnant. And I was, so happy because now there was this baby, and especially after not getting to meet the first baby. And I decided, after being in the delivery room for someone very close to me years before I gave birth, and they had gone through like 2 rounds of epidural, and by the time they had delivered, the medication had taken an effect, and they were feeling, nauseous and shaky, and didn't even feel like they could hold the baby right after delivery because of the way that the medicine had affected them. And seeing that experience firsthand, I decided that I wanted to have a different experience. And so I chose to go for an unmedicated birth. And this is the story. I've not really shared the birth story before. And I wanted to do a water birth. And I was, like I said, working at the hospital at the time, and they had not yet done a water birth at this hospital. And the relevance of that, we'll get to that in a minute. So I didn't want to be induced, and I ended up going over. She was due on the 15th, and that was at 40 weeks. And I remember I went to work there at the hospital, and I had my 42-week visit that day. And I told my boss, who is the friend that I mentioned, that, I was having to leave to go to the appointment. And I said, okay, I'll see you back in an hour or so. And she said, you're not coming back. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm coming back. She's like, you're having that baby today. I was like, no, they're going to let me go over the weekend. Because, like I said, I didn't want to be induced. I didn't want any medicine. And she looked at my belly and she shook her head and she said, you're having that baby today. And I was really convinced I was going to be able to go over the weekend. Well, I went in for the visit, and I remember the nurse that was doing the ultrasonogram. She said, I don't remember the last time I did one of these at 42 weeks. Everybody's like, get this baby out of me. And I said, well, I really wanted her to come on her own. And when she did the x-ray or the sonogram, she said, well, the amniotic fluid is really low. And so we need you need to go ahead and go. She needs to come today. I said, okay, well, I'll go home and get my stuff. And she's like, no, you don't understand. It's low. Like, you need to go now. So I called my friend, my boss, and told her that you were right. I won't be coming back to work. I'm going to have the baby today. And what they ended up telling me, since I wanted to be unmedicated, but they did break my water at that appointment, hoping that might start contractions by the time I got to the hospital, and it didn't. So what they told me is they could put me on something called a Pitocin drip, which would start labor. It would start the contractions. They said it would make them more intense. They would probably feel them more, and they would only have to put me on it until I started contracting on my own, and then they could take me off of it. And didn't sound like I really had a choice, so that's what we did. And in the meantime, they came in the room to set up the pool. And again, they hadn't done it before. And it was, they couldn't have been any better. They were great. They were wonderful. But what ended up happening was they came into the room. So I had a big room, the bed, and this big open space. And they set the whole pool up, and they get it all set up. And then they realized, how are we going to get water in it? And they didn't have like a hose or anything long enough at that point on that day in that room to get water. So they had to take it all back down and move it. And it was like a really large bathroom. So they're able to set the pool back up in the bathroom and then could use the shower head thing. Well, all this to say that they got water in the tub, and I was able to get in there and labor in there, but there wasn't, by the time she came, there wasn't enough water to deliver the baby in the pool because it had only gotten to be like 4 inches. So got out of the tub. Wasn't the birth plan, but hey, we're rolling with it. Delivered the baby on the bed, still unmedicated, other than that drip I had to kind of kickstart the contractions. And I knew that was the right choice for me. I believe that unmedicated birth broke me open in all the best ways. And I chose it again for my second child, which she was born just under 2 years later, and she also came late. So she was due on September 1st, and it was September 9th, 9/9, and I was like, oh man, it would be great if she was born tomorrow, 9/10/11. That's a really fun birthday. So I brought my toddler, and we went out to LSU. We went tailgating all day, and I had her just, people were like, well, wow, when are you due? I was like, 10 days ago. And I mean, it was this big round belly, and I did that all day. She didn't come that day, but around midnight that night, I was like, oh, I'm feeling something in my side. And I didn't go into labor the first time. So it took me a little while to recognize that I was actually going into labor. So I called the hospital and let them know as soon as I recognized that I was on my way and that I was planning on doing a water birth because, last time and it didn't fill up. So I wanted to give them a head start. And they said, okay. And so we headed to the hospital, and the first delivery, there was a lot of commotion in the room. There were a lot of people in the room. And, it was my first birth. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was going on. My bed was getting rolled around, and it was just a lot. For my second birth, I was like, I want like as little people in the room as possible, just, while I was laboring. Well, she came so quickly, so quickly. So I think that we headed to the hospital at like 12:30. And I mean, she was born by before 4:30 a.m. And what happened with her was I was in the pool still. It was being filled. It wasn't all the way full again, but it was being filled, and I was getting to enjoy laboring in the tub. And I was crowning, and my friend that was in there with me went and to get the nurse to let her know that, the baby that I was crowning. And the nurse came in and she said, I've never delivered a baby in the water. I'm not comfortable with this. You can either wait for the doctor to get here, or I can deliver the baby on the table. I'm not, comfortable. And I'm grateful that she was honest. And I didn't really at that point feel like I could wait for the doctor. So kind of get out of the tub with the baby's head already on her way out and move to the bed. And she came out like really quickly. And yeah, it was beautiful. It was emotional. It was intense, especially when their shoulders come through. That's neither words breach or anything like that. And it's just, wow, it's amazing. And I loved the feeling afterwards of clarity, and just felt really good in my body. Felt really good in my body after. I know that I've never been the same after the birth of my two daughters, and I'm so grateful for that. And that's just my personal birth story. I hope to one day truly experience having the baby in the water, like submerged in the water. And I've gotten to labor in the water. I've gotten to crown in the water. I've just not gotten to deliver in the water yet. So we'll see. And you know what? Maybe that's not in the cards for me. I don't know. But I do feel like it would be such a magical experience. And especially now that I've been practicing breath work and all of these things, I like to think that the whole giving birth experience would just be even more, I would be even more in tune with my body than I was before I had these practices that I have now. And I feel like the whole experience would just be even more spiritual and more, I don't know, it's giving birth and bringing new life into this world is pretty, I'm speechless. I don't even have the words. I'm grateful that I've gotten to experience it. And I don't take it for granted that I've gotten to experience it. And it's not for everybody. Not everybody wants it. Not everybody wants that. I did want it, and I'm grateful that I've gotten to experience it. And I will say this too, that motherhood has expanded my capacity to hold space in life, in relationships, in my coaching. And you don't have to be a parent to understand birth and rebirth. And we all go through initiations. Motherhood was an initiation for me. And birthing, giving birth to my daughters was an initiation for me. But, we all go through initiations. And I want to invite you to reflect on the before and after type of moments of your own becoming. Okay, I want to hop into, there's something I want to say. I want to talk about the cultural pressures and the invisible labor of women and acknowledge this cultural weight around motherhood and the expectations to do it all and be perfect and smile through pain. And I want to speak to this invisible labor that many women carry and how what I'm working to do is like helping these women. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe you know one of them. Maybe you used to be one of them, right? Helping you drop the performance and live in truth. Because Mother's Day can feel performative if you're burnt out. The cards, the flowers, the smiling photos on Instagram. None of it captures the full truth because many women feel unseen on this day, even when they are being celebrated. It can feel like a spotlight on how much you're doing that goes unacknowledged. And sometimes you're celebrated for the role, but not for the full emotional and mental weight that you carry. And if you're exhausted or in grief, it's okay to say that this day is complicated. And the pressure to be everything to everyone can be a silent thief of joy. Because sometimes we're expected to be nurturing, but not needy, and strong, but not too assertive, and soft, but still productive. And it can feel like an impossible tightrope sometimes. And you wake up feeling like you're already behind, or you're constantly chasing this invisible finish line. And joy gets replaced with obligation. And the parts of us that need care, like our creativity and our sensuality and our health, often get pushed aside for the sake of performance. And I see you, okay? And most mothers do carry invisible loads like emotional management and mental checklist and unpaid labor. And it's not just about packing lunches or showing up at soccer practice either. It's about remembering the dentist appointment and sensing when someone's mood is off and absorbing emotional tension in the house and tracking everyone's schedule and never fully getting a day off. And the cognitive and emotional load is constant and rarely acknowledged for some of us. And that unseen weight, it's valid and it matters. The most radical act is choosing your own wellness and joy and truth and saying yes to yourself in a culture that romanticizes self-sacrifice is revolutionary. You know, your joy is not a luxury, it is a necessity, and your wellness is not selfish, it is foundational. So choosing to care for yourself sends a ripple of permission out into your family, community, and even generational lines. You become the blueprint for a new way of being. One thing, my coaching helps women stop abandoning themselves to meet everyone else's needs. You don't have to keep pouring from an empty cup. You get to set boundaries, reclaim your time, and redefine what success looks like. The women I work with are powerful, but many of them have been putting everyone else first for years. And through our work, they come back home to themselves. And that inner homecoming changes everything. Guys, we need to normalize asking for help and investing in ourselves. You are not weak for needing support. You're wise. You wouldn't expect a flower to bloom without sunlight and water. So why should you thrive without nourishment, rest, or resources? It's time that we stop glorifying struggle and start normalizing support. Asking for help is not just okay, it is courageous and necessary. You can be a loving mother and friend and partner and leader and still be allowed to be tired, and still be allowed to receive, and still be allowed to choose you. Now, before we hop out of here, I want to talk about one quick thing. Mothering your vision, business, and dreams. I want to shift into the metaphor of mothering as it applies to creativity and entrepreneurship. And I want to invite you to think of your business or dream like a baby or a seed. And it deserves nurturance, patience, protection, and belief. Because your dream is a life form. That's why it needs mothering. Dreams don't grow without love and energy and protection. And just like a child, they need to be held in belief. Even when they are not yet visible to others, you are the guardian of your vision. And the way that you speak to it matters. And your consistency, your rituals, your intentions, they all act like nutrients for its growth. Don't abandon your dream just because it's still small, okay? Businesses are birthed in vision and sustained through intention. The initial spark is sacred, but it is the daily tending that makes something real. The way that you show up, the systems you put in place, the alignment you maintain. It's all part of mothering your business. Just like in parenting, you're going to make mistakes, pivot, and learn along the way. And that doesn't make you a bad creator. It makes you human. And there is beauty in the becoming. So if you've been nurturing everyone else, your dreams may feel starved. Many women give and give and give and give. And when they finally sit down to build something for themselves, they are depleted. Your vision deserves the same level of love, time, and attention that you've been giving to others. You don't have to abandon everyone, but you do have to include yourself. And sometimes the best gift that you can give your children or your loved ones is showing them what it looks like to choose your own path. You are allowed to take up space. I love helping women feed their vision without draining themselves. Because it's not about hustling harder, it's about getting aligned. You do not need another to-do list. You need clarity, strategy, and energetic support. I love to help women build lives and businesses that feel good while they're building them, not just someday when it all pays off. Because sustainable success starts with sustainability in your life. You do not have to sacrifice your health, your family, or your peace to make an impact. You get to build something beautiful and sustainable and aligned. And your business should feel like an extension of your soul, not just a job. You can design a life and a brand that reflect your values, pace, and energy. There is room for you to create something that thrives without the burnout. That is what alignment makes possible. Your dream was given to you for a reason, and now it's time to mother it into the world with intention. And you can mother your dream and yourself at the same time. You're not required to choose between your calling and your well-being. In fact, your dream flourishes when you're nourished. And you can build while you heal, and you can expand while you rest. And the more you take care of yourself, the more space you'll have to care for your vision with clarity and joy. Investing in yourself is not selfish. It is generational healing. I want to invite you to think about the legacy that you want to leave. Guys, whether you are a mother or not, you are constantly nurturing something. If you've been walking alone, I want you to know there's support available. I built this podcast and my coaching spaces as a refuge for women, for anyone. This is a Mother's Day episode, so we're going to say for women here who are done carrying it all without a village. If anything in this episode stirred your heart, I invite you to reach out. Work with me. Let's mother your dream and your healing and your future together. Happy Mother's Day. See y'all next week. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It. I hope today's episode sparked something powerful within you. Remember, every step you take towards your vision counts, no matter how small. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please take a second to hit that subscribe button or leave a review. That would be amazing. Or share the podcast with someone who's ready to bring their dreams into reality too. And if you're looking to dive deeper, connect with me on social media at Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, or at BE_what you want. Or visit dreameditthenreallifedit.us for more resources on aligning your life, business, and dreams. Until next time, keep dreaming and keep manifesting your dreams into real life. Love you, friends.